Gold is the most powerful currency in the world. Not only will buying and selling gold help you turn a good profit, but it will also allow you to protect your assets and secure your financial future. Before you can truly understand the power of gold, though, you need to take a look at the history of gold in the United States. At one time, the United States used what's known as the gold standard. Basically, that meant that all money printed and dispersed in the United States was backed by gold. People could take the money to the Federal Reserve and exchange it for gold with which it was backed. This made money much more valuable than it is now. In fact, back then, cash was kind of like a check. You held onto the cash, but you knew you could cash it for gold at any time if you wanted. When the gold standard was in effect, the government set the fair market value of gold. This did not really cause many problems until April 5, 1944, when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102, which banned the hoarding of gold. Basically, people were not allowed to own gold certificates or coins in excess of $100. People were forced to turn their gold in, and they received money in return. At that time, the government valued gold of $20.67 a troy ounce. Once the government confiscated all of the gold, they raised the price to $35 a troy ounce. Thus, people were out a lot of money. The government, on the other hand, made a bundle. At the time, the government said it had to confiscate the gold in order to help the country get out of the Great Depression. Basically, they felt they were not able to flush enough money into the economy since people held so much of the nation's gold. The gold standard carried on in one form or another until 1971, when President Richard Nixon finally did away with it. Then in 1974, Gerald Ford finally made it legal to own all gold again. Once the gold standard was gone, the dollar did not have anything to back it up. It was valuable because the government said it was, and that is still true today. You cannot take your dollar to the Federal Reserve and get anything but a dollar, or an equally valueless bond back. As long as the government says that the dollar is worth a dollar, and as long as inflation or deflation stay within the norms, that is okay. However, the current economic crisis has shown that inflation and deflation cannot be controlled with a fiat monetary system. The Federal Reserve's idea of fixing the problem is printing more money, which just makes the dollar lose more and more of its value. That's why gold is so important. Gold has an intrinsic value. It means the value is actually in the item. You don't need someone to tell you that gold is valuable. It's valuable simply because it is valuable. In fact, it gets even more valuable when the economy is bad, especially now that the government doesn't set the fair market value. Also, the government can't create a bunch of gold like they can with cash. When they create a bunch of cash, it drives its value down. But that can't be done with gold. With that in mind, gold will help you protect your assets and generate wealth.